locked and loaded with 2 anecdotes from the week that went by, and one of them is some of my relatives were staying in a hotel in New York, upstate New York, so like rural New York, and they were woken in the night by a ruckus. Like this is a day for bad hotel chat. And so my aunt went downstairs to try to find out what was going on, and it turned out that there was this massive raging party happening in the bar that was like below them, and it was the Canadian curling team.
Oh,
those guys were in for an exhibition. Yep, the swearing, cheating, and now trashing hotels. And my aunt, who is in her 80s, was like, "You're much too old to be doing this. Why don't you just go to bed? It's 1 a.m. You're sportsmen. Go to bed." But that hotel did handle it. They told them all to go. They told them all to go to bed, or that they would have to call the police, apparently. And they helped my family move to a different room where it was like farther away from the bar, and gave them snacks and like tried to make it. I know it can be done. It can be done. So that was anecdote number 1.
Very good. And also these Canadians, they're ruining that country's reputation.
I thought Canadians were meant to be polite, but something's going on.
And this is like 3 times now. Like they
are.
Don't
be
out of
control.
Yeah.
They're out of control. And the other small micro anecdote was, I went to the store earlier, and a lady had this sweater, and she was like looking at it, and she was showing it to her friend, and she went, "Oh, isn't it soft?" And her friend touched it and then said, "Yes, it's very sensual." And I thought, no, we're not.
And what were they? What was it? A blanket?
A sweater.
A sweater.
So, a sensual sweater.
What's wrong with that? I'm all for a sensual sweater. Maybe it's heated.
I don't know. I felt like I was hearing something I wasn't supposed to hear. Like it felt really personal, and I was uncomfortable, so I went home. And I mean, it wasn't like, it wasn't like Ann Summers that I was shopping in. It was Sainsbury's. So I'm a bit taken aback. But there you are. Those are my 2 anecdotes. Have you got any anecdotes from the week?
Nothing like a sensual sweater.
Nothing.
Nothing that's going to top a sensual sweater.
Be like a sensual sweater?
What's my anecdote? What can I tell you? Oh God, think of something interesting. Oh, we won the pub quiz. That was exciting.
Okay. Come on.
And it was a really difficult one, to the point where I'm like, you're sucking the fun out of this because it's so hard. Like, I'd rather... Oh, and yet we would, which was a very lovely, lovely surprise. Don't get me wrong, but I want to enjoy my quizzing. I don't want to... It was etymology.
Okay.
Which, if I've said that right, is the whole history of words, like origin of words. Which sounds right up my street. I'm like, yes, give me a bit of that. But then, so it was 3 definitions. So it was like, I don't know, a fork with 3 prongs, which would be a trident. So you had to have three of them, and then connect them as to what was the root word that connected them.
Right. Okay.
So I'm trying to think of what an example was now. Like morgue, mortgage, and something, another more word, and the link was mort, which means death in Latin or Greek or something. Okay, yes, so you're doing this late on a Wednesday night.
I bet there was a lot of side-eye going around that room.
There was this one team that really struggled with the concept. Like, they just couldn't, they were really struggling with exactly what you wanted, which I totally get that. And also, like, yeah, you're just there just to have a bit of a nice, like a laugh. You don't want to feel stupid, and if you can't even get the round locked in, like what they want, it was quite tricky.
And then you're going to be in that position for the next hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
They want to get Kay and Simon on the case. They did an excellent quiz between the 2 of them for the event. Yeah, we had a lovely time, and the right level. It's a key. It's very
Kay's
difficult. Retro quiz was top notch, and fun. I even brought it home and gave it to my family at home. And
that's a nice compliment.
So yeah,
cute.
Everybody had a good time.
Cute.
You're about to do a deep dive into the history of the English language.
I mean, it's interesting, but it's interesting for a bit.
Time and place. Yeah.
Question,
maybe two.
Yeah. Like, because I didn't know mortgage and mortuary were linked.
Yeah.
They are.
Oh, that makes you feel a certain
sad
way about your mortgage, doesn't it?
Oh my God. I don't
know what it feels like a death sentence. All right. Well, look, shall we begin a She Changed History? Brief look at some cool ladies.
Yes,
I'm excited because I have taken a leaf out of your book and I've found some fighting types. I've found some warrior women, which is not usually my
not your style.
Not my style. So hope you'll go with me on this.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if you're ready, we can begin.
Yep.
All right. Hello, Vicky.
Hi, Cara. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you today?
Yeah, I am good. I've just had some fresh pineapple. That's the highlight of my day. Delightful. And I love a bit of pineapple, you know. Yeah. Love it.
I feel like you're breaking into it early in the year, and I
Oh, nice. It was right.
It's a summer thing in my mind, but where it comes from, it's already summer, right?
It's already summer. And I did the thing where you pull the leaf out the top just to check it's right. And it did. Sounds like juicy. It was great.
Oh my God, I'm salivating.
I know, because it's right. That's how I was like, this is actually a treat.
And your body, like, that's such a nutritious thing to have.
I know, I loved it. Okay. It was great.
Well, now I'm jealous, and we need to whip through this so I can go make my dinner. It's made me quite hungry.
Let's do it.
Pineapple. All right, so today we have, there are, this whole thing that we're about to talk about is set in ancient Vietnam. And it will come as no surprise to you that I do not speak Vietnamese. So apologies in advance for pronunciation errors. They will be many and varied. But we have two women called the Chung Sisters. It's spelled in English, it looks like Trung, but I am reassured that it's pronounced Chung. So basically, on March the 8th, as well as International Women's Day, Vietnamese people have another celebration to attend to, and that's a festival called Hai Ga Chung Day, which is a commemoration of these two sisters whose courage and defiance and military might left an impression that has resonated right through to today, 2,000 years after their own lives.
Cute.
So yeah, we're going way back. We're going to 40 CE. We've got a little bit of everything here. We've got colonialism, we've got uprisings, we've got elephants, we've got these incredibly fierce women who took on one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world.
You know, when you just need something, and I feel like I need this today. I feel like I need
like a pineapple and a story about warrior women. Let's do it. So I've only got a few sources for this one. I leaned hard on the National Geographic, good old Britannica, and there's a website called Off-Road Vietnam that talks about Vietnamese traditions, culture, festivals, and so on. There's also some great YouTube videos if you search for the sisters by name, and one historian in particular who I'm sure I'll mention in the course of this, who I think she's so excited about them. It was just delightful. So rolling it right back to kind of understand the Chung sisters, it's really helpful to understand the time that they were born into. So that kind of means looking at what the Han Chinese Empire was doing in Vietnam at the time. The Han Empire had seized control of the region we now call Vietnam. They had been there for nearly 200 years before our story begins. So from around 111 BCE, they had established this stronghold. They called that territory Jiaoxi, and it sat at the southernmost edge of the Han Chinese Empire. So like most occupied territories, it was really valuable. It's the Red River Delta, as we would know it now. It's like river deltas are. It was fertile, it was productive. It also connected the empire to these important maritime trade routes and linked up the Silk Road. So it kind of made a continuous flow of goods, money, trade. It also acted as a really handy buffer zone between the Han controlled lands and kingdoms further south that could potentially be enemies. So it was a nice little safety area. And in common with empires all through history and including today, the Han told themselves, and anybody else who'd listen, that their presence in Vietnam was a gift. They were bringing order, they were bringing progress and prosperity and civilization. The Lac Vietnamese people who lived in the area, unsurprisingly, saw it differently. So, what the Han actually brought was a structured and deliberate program of control. And historians refer to that as sinification. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that one right, but we'll go with it. Sinification as a plan had several kind of interlocking bricks, and it kind of touched everybody's life in that region at the time. There's a brief explanation of what that means in this quote.
The Han aimed to change local customs, promoting Confucian ethics, Han education, and the Chinese language to make the region civilized according to the Chinese standards. We've touched on this before, haven't we, in Empress Wu's time? Was it Empress Wu?
Yeah, there's a few stories that you've brought to us. There was, I've written the names down elsewhere, but there was Nanny of the Maroons. There was Nzinga, Zinga and Bandi.
Yes, that's who I was thinking of as well.
That piece about
African
culture and civilizing the kind of territory that what you're actually doing is taking stuff that doesn't belong to you and pretending you're doing people a favor. So yes, very much the vibe here.
Yeah.
It's that cultural assimilation piece. So in this specific setting, the Confucian ethics that are being promoted are a really important part. We'll come to.
Yes, that's quite a loose term, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll kind of dig into it a little bit and why it was such a culture clash for the Lac Vietnamese. Basically, those customs that the Han brought gradually displaced local ones. So again, we're joining this process 200 years in mid-flight, if you know what I mean. But the message was clear. The Vietnamese traditional ways were inferior, and the path to success and status meant following, conforming to these new Chinese norms. And then there's the economy. So the Han did introduce some really useful technical innovations. At this time in Vietnam, it was still a brass age. The tools were, really skillfully manufactured, but relatively soft. And then the Chinese brought in these iron plows, which were way more durable and productive.
Of course.
They had irrigation techniques and ways of planting rice that were much more effective and improved yield.
Like maximizing.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of building on what was already there and like bringing it to a more modern standard. And of course, there's that thing of connecting the Silk Road to that maritime trade route. So trade is flourishing, but the local population, rather than kind of benefiting, hey, everybody's having a great time, they actually ended up paying more because the
through slavery,
through taxation. So the locals were required to hand over their money, a share of their products, so copper, there were cowrie shells, there were spices, anything that they were manufacturing, they were ending up somehow being more productive but getting less. So the prosperity flowed disproportionately outward to the empire.
Okay.
Right? And then the greatest source of personal resentment, and the one that would eventually produce the Chung Sisters revolution, was what was happening to the Vietnamese social structures, and that's this Confucianism piece. So the Han reforms to land ownership and marriage law were along those Confucian lines, and Confucian society is hierarchical, and every person
big time.
This is the whole thing. You are subservient to the person above you, and there's this massive chain that goes all the way up to the emperor. And women are right at the bottom of that chain in Confucian society. And that is a total cultural reversal for the Lac Vietnamese, because they traditionally had clan-based societies where women had real roles, real responsibilities, agency in the running of their daily life. They could own property, they could inherit property. It was, in fact, a matrilineal inheritance in their culture. So the property passing that way.
I just wonder what the transition was. You know what I mean? Because they're so opposing.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground, is there?
Well, that's what I mean. It's not like there was a transition period.
No, it was
like, here we go.
Absolutely swept away. And the resentment of the change that sweeping away produced, along with the resentment of heavy taxation and centuries of oppression, meant that there were all these minor rebellions flaring up across the region routinely. But
that gives me hope.
It does, and it kind of sets the scene for what comes next, because it really wasn't a question of whether there would be an uprising. It was kind of when and why.
Okay, yeah.
So the answer is in 40 CE with the Chung Sisters. So yes, the town, the center of the Red River Delta area is this town called Lac, and the Lac Vietnamese is a sort of tribal or a cultural group that lives in this area. And in that town, there was this woman who was an aristocrat and a widow, and her name was Chung.
Okay.
She was raising her daughters. We don't know very much about her at all, because history really did not preserve the details of an ordinary, even an aristocratic ordinary woman. But we do know that she raised those girls with all the skills that women of their class would be expected to have. So
much like her mother, I bet. She was just doing what she knew.
Doing the traditions and teaching the skills that they always taught. So silk farming, cooking, home management, but also horse riding, sword fighting, archery, skills around diplomacy. She made sure that these women, these girls, knew their place in the world, and reminded them that they were descended through her side of the family from kings. So,
yes, Mama, love it.
Getting a little croaky. I'm just gonna.
No, don't you worry. Horse riding, sword fighting, and archery. They should be skills today.
Yeah, why not?
Let's bring them back. I would go to it.
Let's know these things for sure. So the two sisters, the elder one is called Chung. If you're trying to keep up at home with the pronunciations, it's spelled like Trung in English, but Chungchuk. She was repeatedly in the historical text referenced as having mettle and courage, and basically she's got moxie. She's a feisty little number.
What does mettle mean? METTLE?
Like having real. See, I'm coming up with really literal things about metal, like METAL, but strength of character, having a real core, values and sticking to them,
like resilience. And
this is feeling like your pub quiz. Like we're getting into the deep things.
I know. I think my confidence has been diminished. I'm like, can I work this out myself? I don't know.
But yeah, she's a tough cookie is the long and short of it. She married a guy who was just as feisty, Tae Sak, who was a local lord to their Lac area. And when I say he was a local lord, he was Vietnamese. So he was kind of working under this empire. He was kind of a go-between between the people and the Chinese Han Empire.
That sounds a good role. Yeah.
It could be. She helped him. She advised and understood diplomacy. And so you get this sense that there was a real partnership here. They understood what was needed, and they understood the local area. We also have a younger sister who is Chung Mi. We don't know very much about her until the next bit of the story. So we'll park her for a moment. What we know from the history as recorded, is that Tisak was eventually accused by the local Han governor, a man called Su Ting, of plotting with other local Vietnamese lords to overthrow Chinese rule. We don't know whether that's true, because apparently Su Ting was a bit of a troublemaker. He liked to kind of line his own pockets. He was really hot-headed, so he might have just had a bit of a clash with Taesak. We don't actually know. But what apparently happened next is that Taesak was executed without a trial. And, you know, given that Su Ting is known for his cruelty and his self-promotion, even in the Chinese history from the time, he was capable of making mistakes. And I think this turned out to be one, because at this point, Chun Chuk is now a widow and doubly enraged, because as well as grieving, she furiously learns that she's not going to inherit the land, the lordship, the title that she should have done by her own cultural background.
Got it.
Her life is being governed by this law that is not her own. And so everything she was raised to expect has gone away.
Seldom women. Yep.
Yep. And I mean, there's another kind of angle that muddies the waters a bit, but I think it is worth visiting, because I thought it was a really interesting observation. Some scholars have kind of pushed back on that grieving widow narrative.
I can imagine.
They have said that there are texts that state that Taesak was alongside her at the time of the revolution, and that people found it easier to explain a woman leading a military rebellion if she was a grieving widow and driven by revenge.
This is like a superhero origin story. Yeah.
Whereas the implication here is that a woman could simply decide enough of this without there being a "I've lost my husband."
Okay, that's interesting.
To it. So that was, make of it what you will, but whatever the sequence of events, and probably the truth is a bit of a complex mix, what followed next is what matters. And that is that Chung Chuk reached out to Chung Mi and they got to work. So there's a quote here that
they got to work.
They got going.
The Chung Sisters rallied an army of their fellow aristocrats to protest new taxes imposed by the Han authorities. Riding war elephants, they marched upon the capital of Jeochi Prefecture. The local Han governor, Su Ting, barely had time to escape with his life.
Yeah, that's
what you get. What's a war elephant? Is that just a henge elephant?
It kind of is. We'll talk about them because it is super cool. But these two women raised an army of 80,000 people. So like,
did they? 80,000?
80,000.
Like a city.
Which I think. Oh, and a lot of the warriors apparently were women, which it's an incredible statement.
It sounds exciting.
Well, if you're in a society where they're trying to say, like, we're following the Confucian model, stay at home, serve your family, serve your husband, be a mother, a wife, or whatever, and these women are going, or, or I could rise up and fight you with a sword.
Have you ever been to
the Vietnamese system.
Have you ever been to a protest or anything like that? Like a
not
has that been your scene?
Long time.
Yeah, I got swept into one once in Dublin, and it was Repeal the 8th March, and the tingling sensation I got from that, all these women like clearly outraged, and it was like this uprising, and it was very, very not uprising, so dramatic. But if that was just them holding some flags, you know what I mean, let alone an actual on war elephants and charging like this, like, can you imagine the sensation you'd be feeling? Like, wow,
it would
exciting.
Be exhilarating, absolutely. So that's what we're talking about here. And initially it was just local people joining in, getting swept up like you did,
swept like me,
getting swept away. all of them having had generations of resentments and paying out and onerous taxes. But little by little, as that it sort of gained momentum, the word traveled, and within 2 years, other Lak tribes and non-Han people from across that region joined the rebellion.
And so it was growing and it was building and morphing.
It stopped being a little local uprising and it became a regional movement. And
something to worry about.
Yes, they were leading the charge.
They were leading.
They rode the war elephants, which I love the image. It's just literally breathtaking to me. So these are symbolic gestures, but also practical ones. These are these giant muscular elephants, and they were terrifying and extremely effective. They could crush their way through any kind of defense. They were immense, and what a statement to rock up on this giant beast of war.
If they're aristocrats, they can have an elephant.
They have the resources.
It's just at their disposal.
Kind of thing. And they apparently also were known for wearing golden turbans, which was a marker in their tradition of aristocratic rank, this color of gold.
Well, we should bring that back too. I want one. They sound great.
Would unfurl them and wave them as like a pennant when they wanted to signal an attack. So I don't know how much of this is literally true. Who knows if they had an elephant?
I love the symbolism there.
Turban. But the pictures that you will see if you search for the Chung Sisters are paintings and embroideries and tapestries, and they're consistently shown in this way. It's kind of become part of their like iconography, and it's about who they were, their status, and their military prowess, right? So this kind of rebel army that they're leading sweeps through the entire region in that quick 2-year period, and they recaptured 60 fortresses in that time, in that first year or two.
What terrain are we working on? It's like Vietnam jungle-y.
Well, it's river delta, so it's quite fertile. All the images I have in my head of Vietnam are incredibly recent, so I couldn't say with any degree of confidence, but I'm thinking flatland and lowland.
AI overview says 40% mountains, dense forests.
Okay,
so no,
right. Not at all what I'm thinking.
But do we trust what AI says? I don't know.
Probably more than my sketchy memories cobbled together from holiday brochures and films about the American War in Vietnam. So
yes, that's true.
I think we go with that.
Okay, fine.
They're sweeping through that region. Su Ting, who kind of lit the fuse of this when he executed Tay Sup, is on the run. And so that means that sort of prefecture no longer has a Han Chinese representative in control of it. And in that power vacuum, Chung Chuk and Chung Ni are proclaimed the region's queens. It is now an independent, sovereign, liberated territory.
Damn. Okay.
And, they took it on. They didn't just sort of battle and then sit back. They governed. So the Chung Sisters have taken control militarily, and now they're ready to govern. And they start with the taxation laws that the Han imposed.
What are they going to do with the taxation laws? Abolish
them because they've got no empire to support. They're allowing the local community to keep its proceeds in that makes some kind of sense to me.
This is the second or third story where that's happened.
Yeah.
People are
somebody from the outside goes, ooh, I'd like a little piece of that pie, and then takes 89 to 95% of the pie. And the local people understandably go, no to that. So that's where we're at in the story. The Lak people in that local region dug in and organized themselves to defend the land they'd reclaimed. But the empire, understandably, was not amused. They had seen this as something that they had sort of secured.
Yeah,
and
I took it
suddenly,
first.
I got it, and now this little local disturbance that should have been handled by Su Ting,
these women,
just a woman kicking off with a regional governor, has turned into this sweeping, unprecedented uprising that conquered this strategically vital territory. And they had driven out any representatives of the empire in the process.
So they're annoyed, they're angry.
They are. And here's a quote that sort of details what they decided to do about it.
The Han Emperor issued an edict. The Han Emperor issued an edict to prepare for war. He sent his best generals, including wave pacifier Ma Han and tower ship Duanzi, to end it. These generals brought with them more than 10,000 soldiers, but it still took more than 2 years to defeat the Chung Sisters. Nice. They really went. And that shows strategy. 2 years. Come on, you've got to have a plan.
I think the fact that they were meeting it with such military might, because ultimately, although there were skilled and trained fighters and politicians and strategic minds involved, like the Chung sisters themselves, most of those people were just village people, just not the village people, but just you know, local people who went, yeah, I've had enough of this. They weren't warriors, they weren't armies, they were just people.
They must have had some skills though, like if the aristocrats were taught sword fighting and things like that, I'm sure other things must be taught at different levels, you know.
I would hope so, because they were doing the fighting. But yeah, so the response was proportionate and serious, and I think shows the seriousness that the Chinese perceived the threat with. They understood that they really did lose quite significant territory here, and they weren't just going to get it back for the asking. So,
and as we know from our other stories, this isn't the first time Chinese the empire has had these uprisings. You know what I mean? There's like definitely a theme.
From within as well, that the people within sort of the traditionally territorial area of China also rebelled against some of the leadership there, and other empires throughout the world. This is a recurring theme, that they're going into places and the local people are pushing back.
It's almost like invasions don't work.
Right. You should just let people be. Unfortunately, ultimately, the sheer weight of the Chinese response overran the Chung Sisters rebellion. So they had all these things going for them. They had resources, they had skills, they had mettle, they were feisty and tenacious, they were great leaders of people. But ultimately, the sheer weight of the response overwhelmed them. And rather than surrender and be captured and paraded as trophies of the empire's restored order, the sisters ultimately chose to drown themselves in water. They knew that they were defeated, and it was their final defiant act. And even now it's remembered. There's a temple to the sisters along the river where they died. But ultimately, the Han did regain control, and General Ma Yuan implemented this really tight and more cautious control over the region than ever before, which I think, again, it kind of tells you how seriously the Han understood that uprising to be. So there's a few words here about that.
Ma Han's victory over the Chung sisters in AD 43 marks a turning point for the Han imperial rule in the region. After he quelled the uprising, Ma Han implemented reforms that brought the territory under direct military rule. For nearly 900 years after that, the Viet lived as subjects of successive Chinese imperial states until they finally gained independence in 939. But the legend of the Chung sisters reminded them of the possibilities. Okay. So I retract everything I said before. The invasion clearly worked for another 900 years.
It did, but I think they had to pivot and understand that they were not dealing with a passive force. And I think that what I take from that quote is that the example of the Chung sisters gave something even during the years of occupation to the Viet people. So, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. The Chung sisters lost in the conventional military sense. They held out for a couple of years and then they absolutely lost. But for nearly a millennia of occupation afterwards, that story of what those two women did was kept alive, and it reminded the Vietnamese and the Lac people, generation after generation, that resistance was possible and occupiers could be driven out, and land that had been freed before could be freed again, and that women did not have to sit at the bottom of the pile, you know?
They became legends,
They did, they truly did. And that nation, as you will know from modern history, Vietnam has faced occupation again and again. The Chinese, the French, the Americans, that kind of reminder and symbolism carries a huge weight. So the Chung sisters have become these icons and just commemorated from their own era onwards. They have never disappeared from the Vietnamese cultural conscience. As recently as the 20th century, when Vietnam was being carved up by outside political forces in the Geneva Accords, the sisters' images were used on propaganda posters, on monuments.
Oh, interesting.
So they are still in people's minds when they're saying, no, this is who we are and this is what we can do.
What's our equivalent of that, I guess? We lean on Robin Hood. Just trying to think like what goes back that is still a symbol. I think, Robin Hood's all I've got, like that legend status that almost becomes mythical, I guess.
I think we've got a little bit of that with like Paul Revere or Paul Bunyan, or like the kind of legend of the cowboy, where you think of these like self-determined men, always men, who have gone out into the frontier and made their own fate. And I think that's what is being called to, that spirit of who you are as a nation. Cunningly, I think, recently there was someone, the sort of de facto first lady of South Vietnam, Madame Nhu, who put a statue up in the women's honor.
That's nice.
And then compared herself to them to sort of her own image. I mean, I don't know anything about Madame Nhu.
All right, Madame Nhu, calm down.
She was just a bit like, look at these wonderful women. Look at me. So this is like 1,900 years after their unsuccessful military campaign. They are still held as an example, a paragon of who you want to be as a leader.
The story is strong, isn't it?
And
But why is Vietnam? Because like you said, the Chinese, the Americans, people have come for it. But what is it about Vietnam that people want? Is it?
I think at the time of the Han occupation, it was resource. I don't know what the French were doing up in there. I have absolutely no idea. The Americans, it was about the rise and spread of communism across the globe. So I think different successive invading outsiders have had different agendas, but
so it's not like oil is a recurring theme or anything like that.
I think there have been a number of different reasons, but none of them, the unifying thing that comes to mind is that none of them have been about improving life for the Vietnamese people.
I know.
It's always been about, wait a minute,
what about me?
What do I want from your life? That's what it's all about. That's empire for you folks. So yes, we know, because we started from this point, that even now these Vietnamese towns and diaspora communities around the world still mark Hai Ba Chung Day, with women dressed to represent the women and riding elephants or, sculptural elephants through the street. And there's a little quote here, which is, it's a bit dry and musty, but I think it was worth including, about how their legacy lives on.
And you thought of me, dry and musty. You're like, I think you can read this bit.
I thought you could breathe life into it, babe. Come on, you got this.
Their determination and apparently strong leadership qualities are cited by scholars of Southeast Asian culture as testimony to the respected position and freedom of women in Vietnamese society, as compared with the male-dominated societies of China and India. Oh, okay, so they're pitching Vietnam as like, we care about women. Yeah.
That women have been allowed to progress, and that comparative freedom is why we have a story like this, where these two women in the ancient world could raise that army of 80,000 and fend off an established empire for 3 years. And
80,000.
Yes, it's not bad going, is it?
Yeah. That's like I want to know what it's like.
It's a lot.
Like a city, 80,000. Like a football stadium. Like Milan football stadium.
Okay. So that's not bad going. Yeah. Riding out on your war elephants with the entirety of Milan football stadium behind you.
Yeah.
Not bad. Fighting for your goals.
Not bad.
And this is why these women, the Chung sisters, are still remembered and celebrated as this lasting symbol of resistance thousands of years later.
Amazing.
And there you have it. That is the story, briefly, of the Chung sisters.
I know, but interesting though. Very interesting. And something I didn't know. And, you know, I've never been to Vietnam.
No, oh God, it looks incredible.
It looks stunning.
It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah. If you go, you could try to go in March and catch one of these
these festival celebrations, because I bet it's beautiful by the colours and the vibrancy and the food.
And the joy.
Yes.
Although I'm not entirely sure as an American it would be appropriate to rock up at a celebration of Vietnamese independence and freedom and be like, hey, can I come and join you?
So funny. Yeah, it's cool though. It's very cool, and that it's lived on throughout the centuries as well. Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you very much.
My absolute pleasure. And now I'm going to go stick dinner in the oven and stop trying to think about pineapple.
What have you got for dinner?
We have got we've got Philly cheesesteaks, little Friday treats.
Delightful. Amazing. Fabulous. Yeah. Fab.
Alrighty.
Thanks so much for your time. Yeah, I'll see you later.
See you later. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of She Changed History. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Find us on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you've got any ideas of women you'd like us to cover in a future episode, please comment on the socials or email us at shechangedhistory@gmail.com. Catch you next time.